All right. So, 9.1.5 has been announced. The ripcord has been pulled. It's taken a year, but here we are. In the next few days, we'll be updating our PTR with a first look at patch 9.1.5, alongside feature updates like the new time walking experiences. This time, we're revisiting Legion with a couple of twists. Wait, what does that mean? Are they adding twists to... Because, I mean, like, okay, I've heard a lot of people, like, pogging about this, because, like, yes, Legion unquestionably has the best dungeon set of all time, and it was the best Mythic Plus ever was, and it was the best doing dungeons in WoW ever was, so seeing it come back in any aspect is great. I'll read more on this Mythic Plus part of it, though. That's very cool. Only problem is, a lot of what made Legion Mythic Plus dungeons fun was the fact that there wasn't a fucking AoE cap, which, Blizzard, you should probably realize that, hopefully. But, you know, we'll talk about that a little more later. These 0.5 patches falling in between full content tiers present an opportunity to focus on balance and revision of core systems based on feedback and data from this season so far. Patch 9.1.5, which is, by the way, I think that's great. If you're going to do major content patches, the 0.5 patch should almost exclusively be optimizing and fixing all the stuff that's there and add a little more to do, you know, obviously balance changes. I think that philosophy makes total sense. See, this includes several significant changes to the Shadowlands Covenant systems in particular. Once you've reached a high renown threshold, you will thereafter be able to freely switch among any of the 4 covenants without cooldown or restriction, as well as use cosmetic rewards that you have earned from one covenant, even if you are currently a member of a different one. Both the covenants switching and the use of cosmetic rewards will also apply to alts once the renown threshold is reached on one character. Do we react to these one at a time, or do we give our feedback at the end? Because we need to kind of read through all this, because I don't want to give my... I don't think I do, because they go down in here, they give their reasoning. I have to read that first. Okay, conduit energy is being removed. Conduits will be freely swappable without restriction. When playing alternate characters, if you have already completed a given Covenant's campaign on a different character, you will be able to immediately earn the Renown and Third Soulbind unlock without needing to replay the full narrative arc. This right here is the singular reason, this not existing right now is the singular reason I'm not playing 3 of my 4 characters, because their best Covenant is another one, and you just will not catch me playing through those campaigns. No shot. Right, so. All right, while we hope many players will be pleased at the increased accessibility and freedom for experimentation these changes will permit, we know that you might be wondering why we didn't make adjustments like these sooner. That's exactly what all of us are wondering, yes. After all, a large portion of the community has been vocal about wanting to see these changes along these lines since mid-2020 when Shadowlands was still... By the way, I haven't read this yet. I have not read this yet. I've obviously read Twitter, so I've seen people's reaction to this. I did not actually know that they were going to straight up say this. That's actually the most significant thing I've seen from them here, because they're basically saying, yeah, you guys actually have been telling us all along that this was some bullshit, and we didn't do it. Well, let's keep reading, though. When it comes to limitations on Covenant switching, millions of players experience Shadowlands for the first time through the lens of their Covenant of choice. And that would not have been possible had these choices carried, or the choice carried less weight from the outset. Hold up. When it comes to the limitations on Covenant switching, millions of players experience Shadowlands for the first time through the lens of their Covenant of choice. So they experienced the expansion for the first time, and the reason they experienced it so well was because they were with their Covenant of choice. And that would not have been possible had the choice carried less weight. Oh my fucking god. How can you go... how can you go from saying this to that? Blizzard, this is completely wrong. This is completely wrong. Like, 100, like this, this is absolutely fucking wrong. No one, not the most casual person is this true. What a fucking idiotic sentence. Oh my god. How can you write that? Not a single player in this game would have experienced this expansion in a less profound way if they could freely choose their covenants from the jump. That is That is unbelievable that someone ripped this in this statement and got away with it. Holy shit. The only reason they wrote this was to give them some kind of copium for doing it in the first place, or to make whatever developer came up with the idea happy and not quit. That's the only reason that can make sense. What an absolute ridiculous statement. All right, sorry. Well, that flipped fast. Nevertheless, after the conclusion of the Chains of Domination campaign, the Covenants are united against the Jailer. After revisiting player feedback in that context, has led us to reevaluate our approach. In terms of the day-to-day player experience, the advantages of a rigid division between Covenants have diminished since Shadowlands launched, while the downsides, in parentheses, feeling disadvantaged in certain types of content or having to choose between mechanical advantages and aesthetics has only grown. The balance of factors no longer justifies the original limitations on Covenant switching. So in 9.1.5, we're looking for a way to circumvent them. All right, okay, so I think we're all like kind of in the same point, right? We'll go on to Conduit Energy in a second. I'll keep going. I want to talk about Covenants for a second. So I feel the same way you all do. I think for a lot of people have felt for a while, where they're like, yes, this is a good change. So there's like two factions of people right now. One of them's very small, one's very big. The very big faction is saying, Blizzard, this is a good change, but just for like the 5th time in a row, it's happening 1 year after it should, when, I mean, the absolute majority of players are screaming at you that this is going to suck. And it sucked for the exact reason we said it was going to suck. And you fix it now. It's very consistent with what has happened in the past, right? Like, if you look at the track record, if we're keeping wins and losses here, and keep in mind, the player base doesn't give a fuck if we're right or wrong. We just want the game to be good. Every time the community has been unbelievably unified and strongly against one of your systems, the amount of times that system has ended up being good and you all have kept it is like much, much, much less than you all nerfing it or removing it based on exactly the reasons we gave you usually in the beta version of your expansion. The win-loss isn't good. So hopefully this is a lesson going forward that typically when your entire player base hates something, it's probably not some profoundly great thing that we just don't realize yet. It probably just fucking sucks, right? Like, none of us know how to design games, right? So, like, I'm not saying we know how to design games, but we play a lot of games, and I feel like we, as a community, have some idea of, like, what's going to be good or bad to play. And some of this stuff has just been bad. Now, I want to dispel a few rumors and a few bad takes I've seen from that large, again, we're still talking about the large community that, let's briefly go into the small community. The small community is, Blizzard, I'm so glad you did this change. I don't know why everyone has to be so Debbie Downer and just, you know, shit on you guys while you're making a good change. Yes, Blizzard is doing something really good right now, but the thing is, unless you're, like, welcome to the WoW community if you're new, but this has happened for, like, 3 years, and they do it after, like, half of their player base quits in every expansion. And this has nothing to do with Final Fantasy. This has nothing to do with the lawsuit. This has nothing to do with any of that. This happened in Legion, in BFA, with countless systems, Corruption, Legendaries, Azerite. Like, it's been happening. It's been happening for so long. They're not doing these changes because people are playing Final Fantasy. They're not doing these changes because people quit their game. They're not doing these changes because they're doing it because they thought they were right for like the 3rd expansion in a row on something they were being told constantly they were wrong, and they fixed it later. People didn't do a mass exodus to Final Fantasy and Legion and BFA. They didn't have a lawsuit going on in Legion and BFA, and they did exactly this on all of those fucking systems over and over and over again. This has happened for 3 years. This has nothing to do with that. And unfortunately, it would almost even be... it would be better almost if the other really bad take in this, which is that they intentionally make Covenants annoying just so they can remove the restriction later as content. That is psychotic. Why would they ever make a system and make it dog shit on purpose just so they can fix it later after everyone's quit? That is so not true. That does not happen. It would actually be better if that was the case. What they do is they're just wrong. And they like when they do stuff like this, it's just being incompetent. If you're trying to make a good game, you make a good game from the jump to keep your player base. Things like systems in this game are something that affect you every day. That is something where, like, on a day-to-day grind, it can grind away at someone and make them quit. You want that stuff to be as perfect in your eyes, the developer, as you can from the jump. And they know that. They did that from the beginning because they actually thought they were right, that would happen, and they were wrong. But don't get it twisted. You are sipping the fucking Kool-Aid if you think that Blizzard, with stuff like this, intentionally made covenants. Like they said this in a meeting. Yeah, you know what? The players are going to hate this, but you know what we'll do 1 year from now? We're going to let them do it and give it back to them. No fucking way. That is so... I cannot believe you if you think that. It's insane. They're not doing this shit on purpose. They're actually just bad at their job. Okay? It just happens. Okay? And yes, at the end of all of this, because I'm being very critical of Blizzard right now, and I'm usually one of the people who's a bit more forgiving, I guess. Having the covenants be able to be swapped is a massively good thing for the game that will keep people playing for longer, including myself. And it'll actually, like, doing progression this raid was a nightmare for certain classes. Think about it like this. I'll just use 2 classes as an example. Okay? Warlocks and mages. Warlocks this patch, before, like, the increased covenant or renown levels, they had 3 specs that all played Night Fae that all used different soulbinds. So they could play all 3 specs optimally without ever using a single conduit energy. Mages, on the other hand, had 3 specs that were also all very, very good, except they had 3 entirely different covenants between those 3 different specs. Mage players just couldn't do what they wanted to do in progression in the raid. They had to stick with whatever they picked. No matter what game you play, and even if you're just hearing these words covenants for the first time, and you don't even know what WoW is, you know that what I just said is just a ridiculously stupid design philosophy. That's just terrible. All right, going on. Conduit energy. However, is a different story. The system simply has not played out the way we hoped it would. We should have heeded community feedback and taken a different direction a year ago. A majority of the players largely ignore the system and are unaffected by it. That's true, by the way. A lot of people will read this and think it's the same bullshit copium that's the first line of this. I've actually never read... I don't think I've ever read anything that Blizzard's ever wrote that is as bad as this sentence after saying this. That's not what this is, right? This is true. A majority of the players in this game are completely unaffected by conduit energy being bad. That's a fact. Conduit energy, the only reason it was ever controversial was because it did affect some people very negatively, and for the biggest reason of there was absolutely no purpose. It was affecting them negatively for no reason whatsoever. There was no positives. It was only there. It was just an irrelevant, needless system. If you guys were unaware of how it worked, I think like they did it was like way more restrictive in the beta, but then they totally changed the way it worked. But then once they changed the way it worked, it begged the question of like, why does this exist? But they still kept it. And I really, this is my hunch. I feel like Blizzard is afraid to scrap or change systems because something with their leadership is in place to where they're willing to sacrifice the quality of the product to keep their developers happy. Like a developer made conduit energy and they would still want to have that guy's contribution included, even if it makes absolutely no sense for their game. That's my theory. Could be wrong, but okay. So yeah, conduit energy makes no sense. Everyone's known that for a while. While the minority who want to engage in multiple type of content competitively feel constrained by it. Correct. Overall, that adds up to a negative experience. Yeah. Conduit energy isn't really making the game better in any appreciable way. Yep, and it never did either. It's not like now, it quite literally never was making the game better. So we're removing the system entirely. Good. Again, God, I know. Like, the people who've been saying the, like, thing for the past couple of years, they've been like, oh, well, good, but why did it take so long? To me, those people were very insufferable in the past. Because I feel like it was like kind of early. Like that shit started in Legion when they still had like a pretty good track record for game design, right? But now it's just been too long, man. Like you just can't release Legion legendaries, us say that, hey, I hate being 6% worse than someone else in my group because they got lucky. For 6 months, by the way, you could not have your best legendary. For corruption to not have a vendor, for essences to not be account-wide, for Azerite to not be tradable, for Azerite to be more of an interesting decision, for tier sets to be in the game, for, you know, just covenant swapping, everything. Like, all of these things that they have eventually changed, every single one of them We have told them, like as if we had a megaphone in front of their building, this shit sucks. It needs to be better. And in a way, it's like, I mean, obviously they're trying, right? Like, like none of us know how to design games. Like, I get it. But it has to be better, right? Like, they need to know that it has to be better. Hopefully they do. That needs to be reciprocated. All right. As for the Covenant campaign skip for alts and the ability to freely swap Covenants on alts, that change is one outgrowth on many ongoing discussions within the development team, focused on feedback that at times players feel that WoW content they most enjoy is locked behind experiences that aren't nearly as appealing to them. Very true, that sentence. Some of the feedback revolves around different playstyles and content types, but a consistent theme is that experiences that were fun at the first time through the start lose their luster on repeat playthrough on alts. Absolutely. I'm glad they learned from that. That has been a thing in every expansion, by the way. But in this expansion specifically, leveling up, being forced to do the Moss scenario, and then on top of that, once you're max level, being forced to do the Covenant campaign, not once, but any time you change Covenants to be at max renown, I think that might be the worst it's ever been. Can't wait to see them make the same mistakes in 9.2. See, I don't look at it like that. I don't... Like, I'm not looking at this like... Okay, so this is why I hate having conversations like this, because... I'll use an example. Do you guys remember the hot tub meta on Twitch? I felt weird talking about it, because every time I ever even slightly condemned it, not for any other reason than I just thought it was like kind of weird that it was here and like not being talked about. It's like basically the inaccuracy of, or I guess the inequality of like how Twitch was dealing with stuff like that. I had to always stop myself, because I realized that while I was making a good argument in good faith, there was a lot of like legit incels and people who hate women that were piling on being like, yeah, you're right, Max, fuck them. And I'm like, that's not what I'm saying, right? That's like the same with this. Like some people are saying like, can't wait for them to make the same decisions in 9.2. I don't hate Blizzard. A lot of people do. I don't hate Blizzard. I don't want them to make these same mistakes in 9.2. I really, truly hope that they learn from this and make a game that's better for all of us. If you're a fan of WoW and you're sitting around hate watching Blizzard, waiting for them to fuck this up and do that again, that's strange behavior. You gotta like figure that out. You know what I mean? Like I just want the game to be better, and they have to just do so much better than they have. And it's not because of some evil corporate greed that these systems are fixed later or tricking players into coming back. That would almost be easier to accept with people's opinion of Activision. The reality is that they just simply haven't been very good at their jobs. And that's even worse. Continuing on. So just as the Threads of Fate system allows players to skip the level up zone narrative and subsequent playthroughs, we want to give max level players a similar option to avoid having to replay a Covenant campaign they've already done. And to add on to that paragraph, can we go to the expression editor here? Okay, well, I'm too stupid to do this, but at the end of this, it should also say, and we also realize that this entire argument also applies to the Maw scenario when you want to start the Shadowlands, and that will also now be skippable because there's no reason for you to have to do it for the 10th time. So also, is it in there? Oh, is it skippable? It will be? All right, let's fucking go. All right. As the 9.1.5 PTR progresses, we hope to roll out several other changes aimed at giving you more flexibility in choosing how you prefer your adventure in Azeroth. We'll have more details to follow as we finalize our plans. Stay tuned for full PTR notes in the near future, and we look forward to discussion and feedback to guide us in our ongoing improvements in World of Warcraft. So honestly, I'm going to look at the other posts, but my initial take on this, overall the post is really good. And they came close to admitting that, yeah, because like, okay, here, so many people are going to get so worked up over this because they're going to be like, and I knew I was right the whole time. Like, guys, we and them have to not worry about holding victories over each other. Like, I was right and you were wrong. That's weird fucking behavior, man. The only thing that all of us should want is like the game is better. So just the takes about like don't read too much into that. The worst part of this is this. I'm not kidding. I think this may be the worst sentence they've ever typed in a blue post ever. I cannot believe that they wrote that. I want to read it again. When it comes to the limitations on covenant switching, millions of players experience Shadowlands for the first time through the lens of their covenant of choice. And that would have not been possible had the choice carried less weight. I promise you, this entire thing was written, and then someone reviewed it and didn't want to have one of their devs get mad and wrote this. Because this is just absolutely false. I can't believe they wrote that. That actually, this sentence affects this post so much that I feel like this would have been a straight up like 9 out of 10 post for them, and this brings it down to like a 5 for me. It's pretty bad. They aren't incompetent. That's impossible. They've done the same mistake with broken systems after system expansion after expansion. They're either ignorant or they do it on purpose. So what can happen when you don't have very good leadership is you can allow things like that to repeat and fester because you never actually address the problem in the first place. You want to know how that happens? You want to know how that happens? When you make a bad system like Covenants that you can't swap, you put this sentence in your article. When it comes to limitation on Covenant, blah, 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 it would not have been possible if we didn't do this choice earlier. This sentence tells you everything you would ever need to know about how this problem keeps repeating because they're okay with it. They're okay with making bad systems. If you don't learn from your mistakes, you keep making them. They don't learn from their mistakes because they're not acknowledging that they made one. This sentence should completely explain what I'm trying to tell you. The only way you can keep repeating your mistakes is if you don't learn from them. They're clearly not learning from them. It's been happening for 5 years. That's incompetence. It's not sinister, evil engagement metrics bullshit. It's because someone there is really bad at their job. Burning Crusade Classic Phase 2. I'm just kidding. We're not reading this. Oh, here we go. Introducing Legion Time Walking. Delve back into the Legion dungeons with Legion Time Walking and take on the challenges within, including access to Legion Mythic Plus dungeons. This event will run for 2 weeks, the first time it runs within the game, and then we'll resume a regular week 1 schedule for subsequent bonus events. Okay, so I'm actually reading this differently than how you guys are putting it to me. It looks like this is going to be just some normal-ass time walking, but they're going to give you access to upper and lower Karazhan because they were technically Mythic Plus dungeons, and they're not going to give you the Mega Dungeon back. So it's like literally time walking with just those 2 dungeons? Or are they going to be like, including access to Legion Mythic Plus dungeons? Well, it says this event will run for 2 weeks the first time it runs. Okay, so that's kind of... Do they do that with normal time walking? Okay, if they don't do the 2-week thing for normal time walking, then I bet... Okay, wait. That might be... Dude, are they fucking geniuses? Can you imagine if they release a 2-week only Legion Mythic Plus thing open again and people just no PTR, nothing, just fucking run into that bitch for 2 weeks? Legion Mythic Plus again? That would be fucking insanely cool. I wouldn't do that because, like, fuck doing that. Actually, I might even do that. Nah, there's no way. Okay, I almost convinced myself I would do that. Yeah, I know I know about AoE caps, guys. I know. They're not going to remove the AoE cap until the next expansion. Number one, because it massively, like, fundamentally changes class balance in a million different ways, and I don't think they can handle that in one patch. Number two, it's not because they want to add it as a feature in the next expansion. Just like when they added GCDs, removing GCDs from offensive abilities at the beginning of Shadowlands, that wasn't a feature, that was them fucking up, right? That wasn't them doing some shady business maneuver, that's just them not doing something right. Same thing with AoE cap. They're not going to remove the AoE cap until next expansion because they probably think it's good for the game, which is honestly even worse. The AoE cap is miserably bad for the game. That being said, though, is AoE cap the only thing in the game that's, like, miserably bad? Well, shards. I mean, obviously shards, but, like, that's just current. I'm talking, like, in the scope of the whole expansion. Torghast? Yeah, Torghast kind of stinks. Oh, that's another thing, too. They need to fix when cross-realm rating is available. Cross-realm rating should not be tied to the Alliance Hall of Fame. Okay, there's two options. You either let Cross-Realm Mythic be available as soon as one Hall of Fame side is finished, or you guys know that Chinese guild that carried like 15 people to the Hall of Fame on Alliance last raid. Just fucking let them loose. They'll fill that shit up in like 3 weeks, tops. Just like let them do what they do. They were born for this shit. They were actually, that guild was created to fill up the Hall of Fame. That's their purpose. And they are now lacking purpose. Give them their purpose back. Why gate things behind Hall of Fame at all? I mean, the reason that Hall of Fame even still exists is because of BFA, right? BFA was like Horde versus Alliance. So they have like the Hall of Fame, but yeah, it's not a thing anymore. Also, factions like kind of don't matter anymore. Yeah, I feel, dude, I know I've been on this train for a while, and I know some of y'all don't agree with me, but I just don't see why in WoW you can't have faction-based lore even if you want to, world PvP if you want to, but I just see no reason why you can't queue for dungeons, raids, PvP, and everything else with the members of the opposing faction. I know you can like mercenary mode, but you're not playing with Alliance people. Like why, dude? Like, why can you not? I mean, even if you want to be a lore guy, like, no, bro, I fucking hate the Horde. No shot. Okay, but even in the story you love so much, we all come together and fight the raid, like the main antagonist of every patch. We fight them together in the story for like the last 10 years, by the way. So like, why the fuck can we not do that in the game? It's just simple, man. Factions were a great concept at the introduction of MMOs, which WoW wasn't the first MMO, but was certainly the most popular and the most trend setting, right? Factions in 2021 serve no purpose. Splitting up your player base into situations where they can't interact with each other for any reason in 2021 is a bad system. It's wrong. That's not good. Imagine if Apex came out a couple years ago and they were like, and guess what, guys? Here's our last feature on the slide. We're launching our game with 2 separate groups you can join, and if you join one, you can never play with the other one. And obviously everyone would be like, what? That's what's happening in WoW right now. That's reality. Like that's happening in this game. It's not as ridiculous as someone announcing that on a new game because it's an antiquated, like, grandfathered in system. But get rid of that shit. It doesn't need to be here. Like, I know like 10 of you in chat are like, you have a Horde banner in your room and you don't want to take it down. Like, I get it. I know. But look, it doesn't need to be there anymore. All right, what else? Island expeditions. Don't care. Oh, also, you guys mentioned Torghast was bad. So, is Torghast bad? I think the only thing that's bad about Torghast is it's required to do for a resource. Like, you're forced to do it. That's the only bad part. It's similar to Islands in that way. But I don't think Torghast is bad. I think the idea is good, and I think it's like, okay. And I think there's going to be a system with it in 9.2 and 9.3 where we actually get to, like, do hard Torghast. I think that'll be, like, Mage Tower level shit. I think that'd be awesome. Here, let's do a poll. Let's do a poll right now. So there's good, there's bad. There's good if it wasn't required, and then the fourth option is, to be honest, man, I just fucking hate Blizzard, and I'm going to hate it no matter what. You guys can be honest. It's okay. Okay, I'm so glad, like, 80 of you were honest. Dude, to be honest, I just fucking hate Blizzard. Dude, honestly, I'm not even listening to your poll. I just fucking hate those guys. It's the second option. It's coming in second. Oh. Here we go. This is probably just them copy pasting this from every patch they've ever released, but in 9.1.5 we're working on additional updates to a variety of class talents and class abilities, including conduits, rune carving, and covenant class ability tuning. So yes, this was probably copy pasted from every patch. This talent and ability improvements is probably copy and pasted from every patch that they've ever made, probably. But that doesn't go away from saying that this isn't one of the most important things in the game. I still think WoW could be so much better if it had better talent, tuning. Like, when you talk about talents and no talents, like look at Final Fantasy, right? Like, Final Fantasy doesn't have talents, but it doesn't really feel worse than it doesn't feel bad not having, like, at least WoW's version of talents, because in a lot of ways talents are an illusion of choice. You basically just like always pick this in this situation. You always pick this in this situation. And it's just like, yeah, cool. You get some extra abilities, but it's not actually like, not really doing a lot, right? And before you boomers pipe up, this was the same shit with the old talent tree too. Stop it. I think in any game, having a talent system in any game is a good thing if the decisions are creative and they're all balanced well. Like in any game, including Final Fantasy. If Final Fantasy added like a 2-row talent system that just had 6 little cool things you could pick, that'd be fucking sweet. No argument, it would be great for the game. If it was made to have actual creative choices and there was cool abilities and stuff. WoW talents are not good enough until every single row on every character is a creative, cool decision you would make, and they're all tuned well. And I feel like it's not too hard to fix that. Like, I mean, just every 2 weeks, if you look at player data and this talent is picked 10% of the time, buff it by 100%. Too good, nerf a little bit. Make it to where they're always like there could be so many changes there, you know. So I just wish they would do that.